This is an off-the-cuff video that is not scripted. Blinded by Fear is out. You can buy it on Steam right now. This is about what I learnt during that process. And maybe this can help others. Or not. Anyway, so the game itself on Steam is doing a lot worse than I expected it would. And I don't mean in the naive sense, which I'm sure people will point out because they love to do that. I thought I had very modest expectations. I thought I would do as well as the average game on Steam, which is not well. But it seems like I'm doing worse than average, which is weird, given that most games on Steam have zero marketing, and my marketing was not extensive, but it did exist. I did actually think about it quite a bit. So anyway, that's the first thing that I've learned, is that marketing seems completely random in the sense that I personally cannot predict what is engaging and what isn't. I would see posts on Twitter that I kind of tried to emulate, but at the back of my mind I was always thinking, this doesn't make... I don't understand why this is engaging at all. It's got like thousands of videos. So I'm still confused as to whether you just need that initial bump. You kind of need a critical mass of people, maybe 100 people or something, to just like everything that you do, and then things carry themselves. If you don't have that, you're kind of screwed, and it's kind of impossible to get, I think. People don't... So when it comes to marketing, people don't care about the quality, I don't think. They care about if other people like it. That's one of the biggest things that can help, which is kind of a catch-22. If other people like it, people are more likely to like it. Which sounds obvious, but it's really annoying rule or fact of life. You can't really get around that. The second one, I think, is if you don't have some... I feel like you need some natural... I am not an internet person. I feel like I don't really get it. Don't really understand the culture of a lot of the places. Ironically, even though I should be old enough or young enough, and I grew up with the internet, I think the modern internet is a lot different from back in the day. And it's... yeah... I sound like an old man, but it's true. So I didn't really get that right, I don't think. And I would recommend anyone doing this, don't even bother going on Twitter. That is a waste of time, because you're only gonna... you won't get any engagement anyway, and the people on there are from the industry, but they're the people from the industry that I think, well, it tends to favour people who are very good at talking and not necessarily good at doing. Perhaps, maybe that's too mean, but those kinds of people tend to be more self-involved by their nature, I think, which is fair to say, and they aren't necessarily going to... If you're a nobody, they're not going to care about you, which makes sense. But you would think if you had an alright product that maybe someone would care, but most people don't, and they're not going to, and getting them to care is pretty impossible. So I wouldn't even bother. I wouldn't even bother trying to get peers to understand what you're doing. It's pointless. They'll just gatekeep you in the worst case scenario, or just ignore you. I would focus on YouTube, because YouTube has the best, by far the best, natural engagement, and it's where your players are. It's where normal people are. who will play your game. Which is ironic because YouTube used to be considered the cesspit of the internet, the comments, but the comments on YouTube are far better than anywhere else, by far. Places like Reddit, I wouldn't try. I tried that as a disaster. And not only was it a disaster, no one even saw those posts really, so it didn't even matter. So that's the marketing side of things. I think when it comes to publishing or releasing, Steam is basically, I don't know if it's your only option. I guess I'm going to try and release on other platforms like itch.io, maybe, depending on how the game does, which it's not doing very well. But what was I going to say? Yes, Steam is really annoying to use. I lost a lot of respect for Valve, I think, during this process. Steamworks is really, really bad. Really bad. The support system, they get back to you pretty quick, which is good. But the fact they take 30% is pretty nuts, really. It's pretty nuts. Like, I think pricing is probably one of the other problems. Like, I could have priced the game lower, I think, but I literally could not afford to do that because Steam were taking a 30% cut. And maybe it's unprofessional to rag on Steam, but to be honest, they're taking 30% of my sales, so kind of paid for the right to complain, I think. What else was I going to say? When it comes to the actual technology, the engine. So I think rolling your own engine literally made no difference. I had the ability to do it. If you don't have the ability to do it, then obviously don't do it. But in terms of productivity, in terms of making the game I wanted to make, I don't see, there really wasn't any difference between that and using Unity or anything like that. Now, I haven't released a commercial game in Unity, but I have made games in Unity. I have been making games my entire life, pretty much, in all sorts of things. Game Maker, Unreal, Unity, other things, but I can't remember. I would say that every problem you think a custom engine has, yes, it has those problems, but it also solves a bunch of other things that you don't really realize, and it's a lot of benefit to the ergonomics of your own tools for making things, and you can move very fast once you have those tools, which no one will believe me for some reason. It's a real contentious topic apparently, but I don't care about that. What was the other thing? Yes. I would, if I was doing it again, make sure you have a save and load system straight away. Because not only is it a technical challenge to add that later, if you want to test your game with playtesters as soon as you possibly can, and if they can't save, they will just not play massive portions of your game because they'll get frustrated because they'll die or something, and they're like, oh, I have to start at the beginning of the level, not a checkpoint. Like, yeah, do that straight away. Also, I should mention that the one problem with rolling your own stuff is that you have to somehow deal with the infinite amount of hardware configurations that everyone has, and the very poor graphics driver implementations that there are across the industry. So I used OpenGL, which is a graphics API, and some things are supported on some cards, graphics cards, and some are not. And think about how you are supposed to test that without having a QA team You can't test that. You can only do the best that you can. And it's very frustrating, especially when you write code that follows the spec or doesn't follow the spec, because the OpenGL spec is very unclear sometimes, and it will run on one person's computer and it won't run on someone else's. Very, very frustrating. And it makes you look really bad. It makes you look like you don't know what you're doing. But that just goes into big tech in general, which I think that nowadays, as a solo, people don't want you to write things from scratch anymore, because it's actively discouraged by the way that many companies set things up. I mean, Microsoft, I mean, the drivers should be better. I don't understand why they're so poor. And you have no recourse to do anything unless you're a big company. Because NVIDIA is not going to listen to my email that says, oh, this thing doesn't work on this card. I mean, maybe they would. Probably not. And things like Windows, where they just... I mean, to be fair to Microsoft, they are very keen on backwards compatibility. So you can still write native Win32 code with some semi-decent documentation. But they're constantly trying to get people away from doing that. They want people to write in C# and using their frameworks, because it makes you dependent on them. And if you're dependent on them, your products will be too. And if your products are, they make money. So in a sense, I think it's kind of the death of... I think the Wild West is over, of the 80s and the 90s and maybe the mid-2000s, of being able to do it on your own, or writing tools from the ground up. I mean, although I did say that it wasn't as difficult, or it was about as difficult as writing with an engine. I mean, that... maybe it's not. Maybe I was wrong. But it's hard for a different reason, which is that it's a dying art, which is being suffocated slowly. And yes, that's about it. So anyway, if you actually made it to the end of the video, which like 90% of people won't do, so congratulations, you are in the 10%. And I have nothing to give you except say goodbye. Bye bye. Make sure you I need to do a call to action. That's what they recommend. Call to action. Make sure that you wishlist on Steam and buy the game, and follow me on Twitter, and follow me on YouTube, and join the Discord, and there you'll just see what I'm saying in 10 different places. So enjoy. Bye.